Welcome back to the table and a little bit of board game news. It's been a few weeks. I don't think we've had a board game news since before Gen Con, maybe.
Yeah, maybe, but this is
Gen Con was all the news, and this is related to that. This is something we haven't talked about on the channel yet. We don't like to cover a lot of negative stuff, but there's a positive update for a negative thing today, and we're talking about that big theft of Magic the Gathering cards from Gen Con. It happened like, what, the day before Gen Con started?
Yeah, this setup day. And you might have seen people online talking about this. You might have seen some of these headlines. There was a lot of misinformation presented. There's probably a lot of questions that people have, and maybe you just have literally no idea what even happened. So we're here to kind of talk about it from our perspective of what we've seen and read.
Yeah.
And we've been following this with interest. As being, big fans of board gaming and being at Gen Con and even being there the same day.
It was kind of hard to miss it. By the way, don't implicate us. We weren't there the same day. I'm just kidding.
It's kind of weird to think about, because during setup day, it's very chaotic. And I know if you're in the industry or if you're ever a volunteer, you might get to go in on the day before Gen Con and see. And it's kind of tough to monitor at that surface level because there are so many people coming and going, so many volunteers, so many convention workers, so many people that are just there to deliver product to particular vendors from distributors. So there's a lot of people moving in and out. And I guess they just thought they could slip away with this and no one would notice.
Before we go any further, in case you don't know at all what we're talking about, 2 people went in with a pallet jack, or basically took a pallet jack.
Yeah, I don't even know if they brought the pallet jack. They might have just seen it.
Went in, grabbed a big pallet full of Magic the Gathering cards, and just walked out with it. Now, in this day and age, you have to imagine there are cameras everywhere. Obviously, everyone doesn't imagine
I don't think they imagined that.
They didn't, because they were on all sorts of cameras.
Yeah, they were on cameras in the actual convention exhibit hall, in the hallways, in the parking garages, the hotel walkways. They literally... at first, they didn't really release anything, I think, because they didn't want to spook them. But as the case went on, they started to release more and more images, and it became
very crystal clear.
They had them on camera almost all, even to the point where they were taking them out to their own cars in the parking garage. They had them on camera.
Now, the update that we want to talk about is the fact that they have recovered the Magic the Gathering cards. This is the Indianapolis Metro Police Department with the help of the New York
because they took the cards to New York with them.
Because the cards were recovered, what it sounds like, in New York, which brings up an interesting question that we'll get to in a second. Yeah. But the IMPD had significant persons of interest. Thomas Dunbar and Andrew Pearson Guillaume.
They thought that's who it was just from the pictures because these 2 guys were game designers. They actually designed a game, and there's pictures of them at Gen Con years prior. Yeah. So it didn't seem like it was difficult. Like a lot of people were like, oh yeah, it's these 2 guys.
The dots were connected pretty quickly. Now, the update is that they've recovered the cards. Those 2 are no longer persons of interest, but you can kind of connect the dots yourself.
They're not looking for them anymore because
they're not. Yeah, that's true. They're not looking for them anymore.
Seems like they found them, so they have no need to look for them.
And I think it hasn't also been reported that their attorneys are in touch with the police departments, and charges are pending.
So let's talk about that because first of all, they blatantly stole over $300,000 worth of Magic cards. This was Commander Masters from a store, actually a local store called Pastimes.
Oh, local store.
Yeah, they're actually in Indianapolis. But they had a Gen Con booth, so they were bringing all these cards in. And I don't know if these guys thought maybe they just would get lost in the shuffle. But when you take $300,000 of Magic cards, somebody at that booth is going to be like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
I don't know what they thought. If they thought maybe they'll just be confused and people take very detailed paperwork of what they expect to have at Gen Con.
Yeah, well, and luckily they had those cameras because otherwise I do think some people might say, hey, we lost a pallet of our product.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot going on at Gen Con. I could see some people going, well, it just got lost somewhere.
Well, I think that's what they were hoping.
But then they look into it and see all this camera footage. So they're able to track them down. That's the good news. I don't know where the product is. My guess is it's going to be
recovered. So
it's been recovered by the police, so I'm assuming it will go back to its rightful owner.
This is a tough situation, though, honestly. And I wonder what kind of recompensance, if there's any, for insurance purposes, because the value of those boxes is not now what it was at Gen Con.
It might be more.
No, it's less. It's unfortunately less because of what that said. Anyway, that's not the point. But being able to sell all that product at Gen Con, and now they're stuck a month later, this Magic set's been out for a month,
Yeah,
like,
I'm
they're
sure.
not going to, it's an interesting thing. So I do wonder about that.
I'm sure we'll have more updates. I don't know that we'll cover them, but I'm sure there will be more updates on this in the future. One of the things that I'm curious about, though, and nothing about this has been reported, but
Your armchair detective work?
this is my not detective work, it's my armchair, like, legal work.
Okay.
I was looking into it, and it appears as though if product in excess, if stolen items that are valued $5,000 or more are taken across state or international borders, it is elevated to a federal sort of scenario.
That's bad.
You're at risk of federal offense. In fact, if that's the case, it sounds like they have, it is a federal
Well, if they moved the
offense.
cards from Indiana to New York, they had to cross several state
Sure.
borders in the process.
So I don't know. I mean, now that lawyers are involved and sort of like prosecutors, who knows what can happen, because there's all sorts of agreements and plea deals and stuff like
I mean, it's a difficult thing. I mean, anything beyond that is purely speculation.
Yeah.
I can tell you what I'd love to see the hammer come down on these guys, just because I don't want this to be a situation where people look at this case and say, oh, well, all they got was house arrest,
I guarantee.
or I don't want people to feel emboldened to go to Gen Con and start stealing product.
I can't imagine. Yeah, well,
I want, like, this should be an example situation.
Hopefully, no one will feel that way in general. But I will say that they're gonna have to. There's gonna be something. They're gonna feel something.
There's always something. But
and my guess is that will be the bar that the prosecutors look for. Is like, we need it to be something so that people know. Hey, this is what you're risking by doing it.
And it's worse for me that these are game designers. Like, this is a community. This is not the biggest community in the world, right?
Bad people come from all over.
Sure, that is true. I mean,
again, not that. I don't want to paint them as bad people in general, but I mean, they stole some stuff. So.
Right. Well,
allegedly.
Sure, allegedly. But obviously they didn't plan. I feel like they didn't plan it well. Like.
Well, we don't even need to talk about that. We don't even need to talk about that. We're not going to talk about how you should plan a crime. So with that,
no crime advice here.
I'm going to put a black bar over Ryan's mouth before he says anything else and implicates us in a crime.
It's like the Three Stooges committing a crime. They were literally on camera every single possible step of the way. Like this.
Well, I would say in general, if you do anything in this day and age,
you're on camera. People
I've got
know.
20 cameras pointed on us right now that Ryan doesn't even know about.
I walked out of Target one time and realized Oliver had taken a Hot Wheel and he had not and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna get arrested for that $1.
Did you go across state lines? And was it worth more than $5,000?
It's like $1 Hot Wheel car. But like even that, I'm like, I'm on camera. I was like, I guaranteed even walking out of the parking lot, I'm like, there's cameras everywhere. My face is going to be on Target's website.
Well, that's about it for the update on this situation with the Magic the Gathering cards. They're back. Maybe there'll be more updates in the future. Let us know if you have any questions below. If they're legal or anything like that, we will not say anything. If Ryan answers any of them, I will delete his responses immediately.
I'm not gonna call out anybody.
Until there's more board game news, though, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.